Welcome.
Hi.
I'm Dan Craig, president of Golden Speakers Toastmasters Club. We're here for our regular Tuesday night meeting. We meet at the Fairfield Business Park second floor conference room every Tuesday night from 7:40 to 9 o'clock. Since the holidays are coming up, we'll mention that Christmas Eve, the 24th, and New Year's Eve, the 31st, we will not be having meetings. I'm going to suggest that we take out our devices and put them on quiet. We don't have any guests this evening, so we're going to move right along. I'm going to hand things over to tonight's Toastmaster. Why don't we put a agenda up here? Aaron Russell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our theme for tonight's meeting is, what are you reading? And to further that theme, we have two quotes. The first is, a reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one. That's George R.R. Martin, who wrote Game of Thrones, I believe.
Yeah.
The second quote is, reading is essential for those who seek to rise above the ordinary. It was Jim Rohn. I don't know who that is.
Oh, hot, very well-known self-development person.
Oh, okay. Moving right along, we'll review all of the role players for tonight, starting off with our timer, Dan Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Tonight we have one speech, which is 5 to 7 minutes. No, sorry, it's 10 to 15 minutes that Jean is giving. As the timer, I will turn on the green light at 10 minutes, the yellow light at 12.5 minutes, and the red light at 15 minutes. And then Jean will have 30 seconds in order to wrap up from that point. We'll also have table topics tonight, which are 1 to 2 minutes.
I'll count.
Table topics have the green light come on at 1 minute, the yellow at 1.5 minutes, and the red at 2 minutes, and then there's a 30-second grace period. Aaron, there's actually a form here on the end of the table.
For the odd counter? Okay.
And then finally, we'll have an evaluator for Jean's speech, which will be 2 to 3 minutes. That's a green light at 2 minutes, a yellow light at 2.5 minutes, and a red light at 3 minutes. I'll keep track of those things and give a report at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
You need to give a report. It's fine.
Next is our grammarian. Do we know who is taking over as grammarian for tonight? Or?
You may not have a grammarian.
Okay. All right, then we'll skip the grammarian for tonight. The odd counter for tonight is Rosaline.
So you're just going to say, I'm going to count all the filler words and I'll give a report at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
You can stand and do that.
so I'm gonna report.
You're going to keep track
I'm gonna keep track
all
of the filler words and sounds used by each speaker and then reference it when giving your report.
Good.
Thank you, Rosaline. Next is our general evaluator, Jean Symington Craig, who we'll meet with later. And then, do we have a joke master for tonight?
I could do a joke.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for stepping up for that. Dan will be our joke master, who we'll hear from later as well. Moving right along, next we are getting to the prepared speech. And so I will call upon myself to read the objectives for the speech for tonight. Yes.
Like 30 seconds just to set up So
Okay.
that's what we'll do, so.
Do you want to set up first?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's what you wanna do.
Toastmasters International's The Better Speaker Series is a set of presentations offering instructions on basic speaking skills. Designed to be delivered by members to their clubs, presentation in this series provide new speaking techniques and facts that can help all club members develop their communication skills. Presentation in the Better Speaker Series may be offered by any club member and require 10 to 15 minutes to present. Tonight's presentation, Creating an Introduction, focuses on the need for effective speech introductions and the process of creating and delivering them. As a result of this presentation, you will understand important elements to include when creating an introduction, either for yourself or for another speaker. You will also learn key points for when you are the introducer, delivering an introduction for another. Jean Symington Craig is a Distinguished Toastmaster, or DTM, and the current Golden Speakers Vice President of Education. She has been a Toastmaster since 2006 and belongs to 2 clubs, one of which is at the Iowa State Penitentiary. She enjoys helping others to experience the self-confidence and personal growth that she has gained through Toastmasters. Creating an introduction, Jean Symington Craig.
Thank you.
You'll actually have to stand to this side so the camera can see the slides.
Move over here and then move over here, like this. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Did you get a sense of who the speaker was going to be? Some background information?
Mm-hmm.
Did you also get a sense of what the topic is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Also, did you get a sense of how this topic might be of interest for you, benefit for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right off the bat, this is an excellent start to introductions and learning how to make introductions. Let's talk about the importance of an introduction. First, it's a smooth transition. It helps the audience change from whatever activities it's been involved with before to the speaker's presentation. It also helps as the speaker takes on this role of being the presenter in front of the room. It also sets up the proper mindset. It's actually going to help the audience appreciate the speech more when they get to see a little bit more about, they get information about the speaker and the topic that's coming. It also can help set a certain mood or tone for the rest of the presentation. And speaker authority. The speaker's authority in terms of speaking about the topic that is going to be made is established in the introduction. We want to make sure that the audience says, oh, this person is qualified and able to speak intelligently about this topic. All right. Some general essentials about an introduction. Now, what I found as I did this project is that there's 2 pieces that we're going to be looking at. One is creating an introduction, and that can be done either by someone who's been assigned the task of, we want you to introduce this speaker, and so you're going to create an introduction for someone else. Or it can be that you are the speaker and you are creating an introduction that you would like to have used, and then you're going to hand it off to someone who will introduce you. So that's the creating and the crafting of the introduction. And then there's the delivery of the introduction, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. So right now we're talking about just general essentials of creating an introduction. First off is the speaker's name. If you don't know how to pronounce the person's name, you want to make sure you practice that ahead of time. And you always give it at the end of your introduction as you get ready to hand off. Clearly, distinctly say the person's name. Then there's the speech topic. Again, you're going to go back and you're going to introduce the speaker's qualifications, credentials, background for being able to talk about this topic, and then how the topic is going to benefit the audience. You're wanting to set it up so the audience is paying close attention because it's going to benefit them. The third piece is, of course, the speech title. Erin, in my introduction, gave that speech title at the end. That is the key spot where you want it to go, at the end, clearly and distinctly. When you're a Toastmaster, we have some additional pieces in our introductions. One is the speech assignment. We always have speeches that are happening in terms of projects and education tracks that we're on. And so in introducing the speech, you want to be able to say where they are. If they're working in a manual, what is that manual? If they're working in the pathways, what path are they on? What level are they on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in pathways. What project are they on within that level? So the audience understands what the project entails. There's also the speech objectives. What is the speaker trying to accomplish? Because we're all learning and growing in Toastmasters. So your introduction is going to want to include some objectives that the project requires, and then also some personal objectives that the speaker may have already expressed to you if you're doing an introduction. And by the way, just so we all know, in our club, we have the speaker prepare the introduction because it just makes it easier. So you know that that's what you're doing in this club, but you could be asked to be doing it for someone else. So we always make sure we know how to do that as well. And finally, the delivery time. How many minutes are we talking about? Mine is 10 to 15. It could be a 5 to 7 minute speech. It could be a 4 to 6 minute icebreaker. So we want to have that out for the audience as well. All right. Whoops, I did the wrong thing. Okay, drafting the introduction. I want to give you just a quick comment. This is sort of a real life piece. Now, again, I've said drafting the introduction can be either you're doing it for yourself and you're going to hand it off, or someone else is doing it for you. And we're hoping that they get it right. And that's a little different approach. I will say, for 3 years, I was invited to be a speaker and a presenter at the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce leadership program that they had, where they sent businesses from around the area, sent 1 or 2 people to come and participate, and I was asked to present. I knew that the presenter didn't really know me, and so would appreciate me writing an introduction. So I offered that. Would you like me to write and send you an introduction of myself? She was so grateful. She said, oh, that would be wonderful. Okay, so there I get to set it up the way I want to set it up, and I take the pressure off of the introducer, who, honestly, we can say that something that can happen that's not so good is if your introducer says something that's inaccurate or even is kind of out of the box for you, something that surprises you, and you're the speaker and you're coming up, and it can throw even the most experienced speaker. So we always want to make sure that doesn't happen. And you can make sure that happens if you're preparing your own introduction as well. So let's talk about how we want to draft the introduction. So first is the approach. Are you wanting something serious, a little more solemn? Maybe you want some entrance music coming on and there's something going on that you'd like that. You have to decide what is your approach as you come to up to the podium, the lectern. Then there's the length. An introduction is generally 30 to 45 seconds. For really longer presentations, it can be up to 2 minutes. So if you were at a big, keynote event and you were creating an intro for the speaker for that, or you are the speaker, it can go up to 2 minutes. But generally 30 to 45 seconds is a good length. The delivery. You want to rehearse. If you are the introducer, you want to rehearse your introduction. You want that experience for the audience and the speaker to really blend smoothly, no problems there. And then finally, clarification. Now this would be if you are presenting an introduction or creating an introduction for someone else, you want to clarify, talk to your speaker, make sure that what you're saying is correct, and be able to ask and answer questions that you have to make your introduction really make sense. Okay. Applying restraint. Now this, we're starting to move into the delivery of the intro, the introduction. And this applies more to the introducer. When you're the introducer, it's not about you. I know that comes as a surprise, but unless you want to get a reputation for really being verbose and attention-seeking, you are going to make it about the speaker, not about you. So the project here has some don'ts, things that you don't want to do if you're the introducer. So don't upstage the speaker. Again, it's not the time for you to tell your anecdotes and your stories like that. The audience wants to hear the speaker. You need to be short, precise, and really laying that groundwork, but it's not about you. Don't reveal any speech details. You want to create a sense of anticipation for the audience so that they're really wanting to hear the speaker, but you never preview contents of the speech within your introduction. So that's really important. Don't surprise the speaker. Okay, you don't want to include information that could embarrass the speaker or distract from his or her message that's about to be given. So you want to really protect that. Unless it's Aaron, sometimes, you just got to do something because Aaron's so funny when he looks, it's kind of good for him for these younger ones. No, I'm just kidding. We just want to make sure we're supporting the speaker always and not doing something that's throwing them off. Don't praise the speaker's skills. I thought this was actually rather interesting. If you go on about the speaker and how great they are, you can set up unrealistic expectations. Let the audience decide the level of skill from the speaker. Don't set up expectations. I think I've been guilty of that before. My cheerleader background, yay, they're just so good. Don't rely on cliches. And this is something I have to tell my prison club down there because they always like to do. I say, do you have an introduction? And they go, yes. And their introduction starts out, this speaker needs no introduction. Okay, that's a cliche. Some other cliches they have here is, we have with us tonight. Without further ado. I am guilty of using these, but they don't want you to use these. These are cliches. Let's see here. Don't say the speaker's name until the last. Now, we did say earlier that you want at the end of your introduction to say the speaker's name. What this point is we're not trying to build up a false sense of kind of mystery. This speaker is a new member, but he's won the district, he goes on, and you don't, everybody knows really kind of who it is. So what they suggest is you mention the name a couple of times at the front, and then at the end is when you say the full name again and move out. But don't try to create a false sense of mystery. The speaker has a responsibility. Now this really ties in a lot if you have someone, if you are the speaker and someone is preparing an introduction for you. Have pity, I guess, is what I feel like, help them do the right thing. So just be available. Let's see here, let me click this. The introducer may have a couple of questions to ask you about your talk, and you want to be available to clarify. That was what we were talking about before, clarification. Then we also want to inform the introducer of any special considerations. This would be, say for example, you're going to have a question and answer session after your speech. You want your introducer to know about any little bells, special bells and whistles that are coming that you would like to include. Okay. All right. Lectern etiquette. We're really moving again now into, you've got your speech, you've got your introduction that you're going to deliver, but now it's about delivery. And what kind of attitude and ambiance are you creating for your speaker and for your audience so you get a really good result? The introducer speaks to the audience the whole time, just like I'm doing now, talking like that. And only at the very end, when you're introducing the title and you're saying the person's name, do you then turn and look at that speaker and take your eyes off of the audience. So you really are building that rapport with the audience. Lead the applause. You're the one in charge. You're the one that's visible. You have the authority because you are at the lectern. So you always start the clapping. Everyone will follow what you're doing. Shake hands. Not in a bone-crushing way. This is
Yeah, who are you referring to?
yeah. Just anyone. You have learn how to have a good handshake. Don't have a fish shake, and don't have a bone crusher. Great. So go ahead and shake hands. Then leave the lectern, and you don't cross in front of the person. So the instruction is leave away from the speaker. You don't go behind, you don't go in front. I'll mention, if you can get good with this, you can actually get gigs to be an MC. And I actually had that happen. I had someone call me and say, we'd like you, we've seen you on TV, we'd like you to be an MC for an event. It was a 3-hour-long event at the campus. And I had to do all of this, and it was like, whoa, it was kind of fun. But it's because there was that reputation, you're Toastmasters, you can do this. Last here, show interest. If you're visible after you step down, don't look like you're bored. So the rest of the audience is going, oh, geez, look at that, the introducer is bored. You gotta look interested in the speaker, and that'll help keep the audience primed as well. Finally, introductions are only the beginning, meaning at the end when you're called back up, you can give it up to 30 seconds of a summary, show appreciation of the points of entertainment that you liked, how the speech is benefiting the audience, words of thanks and appreciation. Okay, so that's it. We've got that. You're ready to do introductions. They are complex. A little bit goes a long way. But it's important for us as Toastmasters to be able to introduce properly. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Timer, could we please have 2 minutes to evaluate our speaker? Mr. Timer, did our speaker qualify?
That's a difficult question.
Okay.
Technically, she ran over, but I actually failed miserably on the lights.
Oh. Is that what happened?
Oh. So, what's the judgment call we're gonna make on
I'd
that?
say we give her a grace period and she qualifies.
Okay. Yay! Now I would like to call myself up as the evaluator for Jean's speech for tonight.
Okay.
Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, Jean started off with something.
Is that one? That pen?
This pen? No. Jean's speech, in my opinion, started off a few nights ago, when she emailed me her evaluator, her introduction. Because in this way, she is basically practicing what she preached in her speech for tonight by emailing your presentation to your evaluator ahead of time to make sure that, and the Toastmaster, to make sure that you get your introduction out to them so that they have ample time to review it and you have a good introduction. And she also printed out her introduction for me as her Toastmaster for tonight. And as your evaluator, she also printed out her evaluation speech for me. So she, on a speech all about introductions, that to me was one of the key points to get, is a correct introduction. So I appreciate you starting off with that. When Jean actually started her proper speech, she interacted with her audience, which was a great job at getting us engaged, especially right at the beginning. Our eyes were immediately locked on Jean and listening to what she was saying, because she was actually asking questions and waited for us to respond to those questions before she proceeded on with her speech. Her eye contact was firm throughout the speech, which in my opinion made it very personal, kind of that personal interaction that I felt the speech was being delivered directly to me instead of just the audience as a whole. A big part of this Better Speaker series is the outline that is given to the speaker ahead of time. Jean had her visual presentation that was given to her. She didn't just read directly from the slides. In fact, she did not look at the screen the whole time. She had her notes in front of her, which I thought was nice from the standpoint that she didn't break eye contact with the audience. However, this was also one of the things that I would have liked to see more from Jean was movement. Unfortunately, with her looking away, or with her having her notes, she could not move around the stage because she didn't want to take her notes off the lectern, looking a little unprofessional. That would have required, if she had walked away from the lectern, she would have had to look towards the screen to remind herself on what the next note was, which is something that I've done before, and I feel like it would have worked. It's something that I would have done if I had done this speech instead. But overall, the speech felt well rehearsed. The clicker that Jean used was great, so you didn't have to fiddle with technology. She made sure to review the technology ahead of time and set everything up so that she didn't have any tech glitches during her speech. And the only other thing was it felt rushed a little bit towards the end, that maybe Jean did not, maybe a little bit more rehearsal would have allowed the speech to not feel rushed at the end. And that's all the notes I have. Thank you. Now, who do I give it out to? Yes. Now at this point, we'd like to move on to the table topics portion of the speech, or of the meeting tonight. Our table topics master is Dan Craig.
Would you be interested in running the time?
Sure.
Are we going to do
We're not going to have table topics evaluator this time around.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Our theme for the evening is What Are You Reading? When you come up to be a volunteer for Table Topics tonight, you'll get something in that vein. Table Topics, just to review, is our chance to come up and do extemporaneous speaking. We don't know the topic beforehand. We have up to 30 seconds to think about how we want to deliver a well-organized talk. The green light is 1 minute. the yellow 1.5, the red at 2, and we have 30 seconds to wrap up. Somewhere, somebody out in that crowd wants to be my volunteer. Who are they? Come on up.
Oh, maybe I will.
Okay,
All right.
Rosalie.
Yay, Rosalie. I'll do your counting.
Thank you, Rosaline. I have 5 questions related to reading and books. Give me your choice, 1 through 5.
5.
All right. Who is your favorite author? What have they written to earn your loyalty? Who is your favorite author? What have they written to earn your loyalty?
So, good evening, Toastmasters and visitors. My favorite author, her name is Jean Symington. What I like about her is that she's just really honest in herself and quite funny. A book that I read about and also did a course is about being a badass, which means going for what you want, which has been really important for me. And she put together, how can I explain it? Principles to help you go for what you want and kind of jump the hurdles to really go for it. And she shares about herself, which I find very touching and also very funny, because she started out being a musician, being poor, staying in the garage in, I think, Los Angeles or some big city like that in California. And feeling sorry for herself that she never had any money. So she decided she had enough of that. She started taking classes, reading books, and becoming a coach. And with that, she started writing her book. And she started doing speeches and talking to people. And she's quite funny. Her description of things are unusual, because she's had kind of an unusual life. And it's just delightful. It just kind of makes life more exciting and funny. So I love reading her book. I love listening to her book, actually, because you can buy the version which she reads herself. And she also does a little speech, that she sends to her, to people that have taken a course. So, if you are interested, it's a very enjoyable book.
Stand. We always hand off up here. Good. Yay!
There you go.
Yay!
All right, I need another volunteer.
Jean Symington. It's like sincere, but okay.
Jean, come on down.
Okay.
It's like sincere with a O.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I've got 1 through 4.
Mm. 2.
What is your favorite book and why? What is your favorite book and why?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. I have to say that I'm going to have to say one of my favorite books, because I am an avid reader, and to try to pick my favorite book, it's like Sophie's Choice. I can't do it. However, with that preface, I'm going to mention Pearl S. Buck's Pavilion of Women. It's an unbelievably beautiful book. The reason I like it, and I highly recommend it, and I've recommended it to people, and they are similarly laudatory about it, is it's a story of a woman in China. Pearl S. Buck really focuses on China. And this woman has done her housewifely duties. She's had children, she's been a wife to her husband, and she now wants to live her own life and wants to expand. She's done all of her duties, and now she wants to just expand. So she encourages her husband to get a younger woman to take care of, his needs, and she is going to just grow and beyond. She's a mature female, and it's just a fascinating book about how she grows more and more spiritually connected, both to herself and to her world outside. The language is exquisite. She falls in love with a man who is a Christian, very different from her background, but they are connected in such a deep way, just on a humanity plane. It's something I would just highly recommend. Beautiful, male or female. It's just the expansion and the evolution and the maturation of the human spirit.
Thank you, Jean. How about you, sir, in the back?
Ooh, me?
Yeah. Thank you.
Who's gonna time for me?
All right, I'll time.
You have your choice.
Ooh, nice.
1, 3, or 4.
4.
What book have you read recently that was different from what you usually read? Explain if it was a positive experience or not. What book have you read recently that was different from what you usually read? Explain if it was a positive experience or not.
Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. For the past 3 or 4 years since I graduated from college, I've been very into self-help books. And so to go outside of the norm there, I actually read a fiction book recently. It's one you may know, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
This book has always been on my radar for quite a while, but is still quite outside the range because I typically read more, if I'm going to go fiction, I typically read something more modern. And it was very interesting to read something a little bit more archaic. And I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies before, but I've never seen the Hobbit movies before. So I was going into it very blind, and I was very surprised by what I read, but very in a good way, because it's geared, unlike Lord of the Rings, which is a bit more violent and a bit more dark. The Hobbit is a much more lighthearted tale about a hobbit, a fictional character that goes on a journey outside of his hometown and experiences several little mishaps along the way. It's kind of like the Odyssey from Homer back in the Greek days. And this book was a pleasant experience just because it was almost like a children's book, and it kind of had that lighthearted, whimsical feel to it that I was not expecting from the same person that read The Lord of the Rings. But it was very enjoyable in such that way, especially because I am a person that really enjoys animated movies, like Disney movies, which tend to be similar to that style of very lighthearted and kind of whimsical. And it was very enjoyable, but not what I expected in the slightest. Thank you.
That's all of our time.
Is it?
We need one from the president.
We're out of time.
We are? Did you ask the Toastmaster? Did you ask the Toastmaster?
Mr. Toastmaster, would you agree with me with the obvious point that we're out of time?
Yes, we are,
Okay, very good.
unfortunately.
Let's have a timer's report. Oh, that's me. All our speakers qualified, so
Yeah.
please take a minute and vote for Rosaline, Jean, or Aaron. Rosaline, Jean, or Aaron. All right, let's have Jean come up and take over the duties of the general evaluator.
All right. First, let's hear from our timer for the evening, Dan Craig, if you could read the times.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, tonight I timed Jean's speech at 16 minutes and 7 seconds. As I explained, I had a severe fail on the lights, so I was complicit. Table topics, Rosaline was 2 minutes 25, Jean 2 minutes 16, Aaron 2 minutes 11, and Aaron's speech evaluation was 3:48. That's my report.
He went over.
You went over?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I went over.
Well, you're sure on that? You didn't have another timing malfunction?
That was the
No,
only thing I timed well.
I know I went over. I will fully admit to that.
Okay, okay. Let's see, we're skipping over grammarian, although I did hear a good word. I think it was whimsy.
Whimsical.
Liked that word, you were using, talked about whimsy?
Yeah.
Whimsical, in your
That was nice.
table topics, that's a extra bonus word. Were there any other bonus words that we heard that we want to acknowledge and praise? That stuck out for me, whimsy. Okay, good. So our counter. Now this is Rosaline, and she got put in this position, and she's learning to listen and also do her function, and I'm looking over and she seems to be doing well. So Rosaline, you could just say the name and then go right across and say, you know, there were this many of this, that, yep. So we need to get, that helps us be specific.
Okay,
Yay!
so Jean had 3 so's and 1 and. Erin had 5 ahs, 2 so's, 1 and. Rosaline had 3 ums, 2 so's, 4 kind of. Jean had 1 ah. Erin had 1 so, 1 but, and 1 and. That's it.
Good. Excellent, jumping in, helping write them, just like that, and that was great. That was really great. And Rosaline was said to me that now when she's listening to presentations and speeches and other things that are out there, she's hearing, she says, I'm hearing so many people that I just want to say, you need to go to Toastmasters. She's hearing that, and that is the experience that starts to happen. So really, when you're the counter, you're the grammarian, you get as much, if not more, out of it than anyone else, because now you have that tuning fork.
You train your brain to.
It starts to,
hear it.
yes. You can start to hear it when you're doing it yourself, and of course, you can find yourself irritated at yourself, but at least you're hearing it, and that's the first step for getting rid of them.
I'm even catching myself when I say it.
Oh, that's advanced.
I said, so annoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Advanced. See, it's already working. And now we have Dan, who's going to give us a joke. Yay, Dan!
A professor was beginning a new semester with a class of students. After a week or so, he became really irritated when one student always came in awfully late. So I thought he'd teach him a lesson. He waited until the student came in. He said, "Mr. Brown, can you tell me which writer or writers gave us the foundational thoughts about communism?" And Mr. Brown said, "So I'm sorry, I don't know." And the professor said, "If you'd come to class on time, you would have known." The student said, "No, I wouldn't. I never pay attention anyway."
Yeah, all right. I'm going to evaluate the evaluator. So yay, payback. I get to evaluate Aaron, who evaluated me. This is like one of those infinite mirrors experiences back and forth. Actually, Aaron did a very good job. He was trying out something that we've talked about in the club, which was evaluating third person. So rather than saying, Jean, you should have been moving more, and you were tied to the lectern because you were reading your notes to some degree, and I'm sitting there going, I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I really want to. And instead of doing that, and everybody else kind of going, he talked about Jean in the third person, and he talked to the audience and said, this is what I liked about Jean's speech, and are some suggestions that I would give to Jean. So it takes it a little bit back from being so intense for Jean, who's listening and can't speak, and it also includes the audience in the whole experience. And he did it very well. A couple times he said you, I've done that too. I've said, I'll say you, but that was very well done and good practice. And he gave specific comments. That was another piece that he did well. He mentioned what I specifically was talking about. He talked about my introduction, modeling what I was going to be talking about. He talked about eye contact. So he really touched base on both the content of my speech and also the delivery with the eye contact. And he made a suggestion. We always want to have something that we can suggest that helps the speaker, at least from your perspective, improve. So he made the suggestion I could do more movement, and I may have been too attached to my notes, which could have slowed me down in terms of moving. Now, Aaron moves when he talks. He likes to be over here doing this and, moving around. He's got that theatrical background, and it's great, and he has fun with it. So I usually expect to hear that from Aaron. And he also said I was a little rushed at the end, indicating that preparation, more practice would have been beneficial. I will say that I kept thinking, gosh, I have more time. I guess I can kind of, interject things and like really get into it and my own personal experience, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, the light starts going, ah! But that's what happens, the timer is a critical part. But anyway, my suggestion for Aaron was just to continue practicing that third. How did you feel doing that third
I
person?
liked it. I don't think I've ever evaluated in that way before, but I thought it was much more beneficial because then you're talking to everyone instead of the speaker. you know.
Did you feel less on the spot with this person
Yeah,
who,
yeah,
you know,
I
like
would
you don't
say
know how they're taking it, and,
Yeah,
and you're kind of like trying to go, you know,
yeah, which has bitten me before. So it was not it. I agree. Yeah. Now that I think of it, it did kind of take the pressure off. That it didn't feel like I was giving the feedback directly to you. That it felt like I was more just saying we could. I mean, because the feedback that we give to the speaker is something that everyone can apply, not just the speaker. It's beneficial for everyone to hear both what was good and what was bad.
in your opinion.
Not bad. Yeah, in my opinion.
Right, and it kind of diffuses it out when you do the third person. I really like third person.
Yeah, I will
Actually.
definitely use it more in the future.
I mean, you can do it other ways, but I really like that. See, that's called a double dribble, or a false start, or just a non-verbal slip. Okay. I was trying to evaluate table topics as well, but I just couldn't do it all, and that. But I want to compliment Rosaline, since she's new. On her table topics, she carefully listened to the question, and she gave various examples that supported her selection of the office. Have I done 3 to 4?
That's almost 5 so far.
Really? Okay. So there's red light, and then there's flashing red light, and then there's that hook that you see coming slowly, inexorably towards your neck. All right, so that's good. So Rosalind, keep up the good work. I know you said last time that you were a little concerned about getting up when you don't know what you're going to say or talk about. It's just getting those mechanics in play, and it comes right along.
I read this time.
Yeah.
And that made a difference.
Yeah,
Because
good.
I was prepared to what I wanted.
Yeah, good. Alrighty, and so with that, I will go ahead and hand back to our Toastmaster for the evening, Erin Whistle.
Oh.
Oh, perfect. We'll get it.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Now we will do our meeting awards. As our speech evaluator, myself went over time. I'm not qualified to get a ribbon. So we have a best table topics speaker, who was Jean. Yeah.
And I didn't even vote for myself. That's the thing. Okay, so let's practice this too, because I was looking at the video, one of our earlier videos this week. So you give it to me with your left hand.
Okay. Like this?
Here, and then you shake with the right. See, you want to have the right hand free so you can shake, and then you lean in and you smile. And there's the camera right there. Perfect. Thank you. I'm the VP of Ed. I have to do this stuff.
And that's it for awards. Now I'd like to call upon our president, Dan Craig.
Yay! Woo! I can't whistle.
It's pretty funny.
All right, everyone, another fun meeting. We learned a lot, and we had a good time, and we got some good practice. Do we have any business that we need to consider before we end the meeting? Anything about the special event you wanted to talk about, Jean, or is it too early?
Well, thank you. Did you guys got?
I think the camera's not on you unless you come up here.
Okay. We have our ghost cameraman. Okay, great. We have a video. This is our storytelling event that we're talking about doing February 11th or February 18th. We're not sure. And I did send forwarded that, and of course, nobody's had a chance to look at it, but there is a video of the stories that were at that storytelling event. Did you see that email that I forwarded?
I did. I haven't. I saw it in my inbox. I haven't looked at it.
So it's got,
closely.
it's what we're doing is we're looking at another club that did a storytelling event. They took a video of it, and so we're looking to invite some of their speakers here, their other Toastmasters, and have them be here as part of our group. So I would say that we could just have fun. You know, those of us here that are Aaron and Dan, we could, you know, just take a look at them and maybe discuss next steps too. You know,
Yeah, I would love to see it too.
Well,
You just forward it to the whole.
to see, you know, we possibly could. Could I send it to the whole group?
Yeah.
And just ask for some feedback. Because what we're trying to do is they had about 8 or 9 speakers, and we're thinking we have room for 4. And then we would have 3 speakers from this club, storytellers. So we have to, and then of course it depends on who's available like that. But so, and we have the library, we're waiting to get the library and.
Yeah. Now
So-
both, as of when I called, both dates were available.
Yeah, but you know, people are thinking of their own events too.
Yeah.
So that's, I you know, anyway, I get nervous about the library, because I've had it where I've checked and it's been booked out. So, okay, so why don't we do this? Let's, between now and next week, so I will send that out. We need to get you into the system so that we have a member's
Yes, I'm
email.
gonna bring my,
Checkbook or
my
your form.
my form, I forgot again. It's just been a busy week with getting a show together and doing a presentation.
I remember that. I saw your name. You were at the library, right? I saw your name. I went, oh, that's where she is. Okay, so what would be good is that we've taken a look at that video, just have fun, and see if we can identify the people we want to ask. That sound good?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
I think I'll mention before we close that I noticed a couple of good articles in the latest Toastmaster magazine. We get a monthly magazine, and you can also look at it online. One of them was by Craig Valentine, who's somebody we've been watching some tips by. It was something like 15 tips to make your stories great, or something like that. So that was nice to see. And there was also another article by another Craig, I think it was Craig Harrison, and his article was something like How to Tell Your Story. So I thought it was interesting. We're thinking so much about storytelling, and that's what's in the latest magazine. So I suggest everybody take a look at that.
When did you get your magazine? Because I haven't gotten mine yet.
I actually don't get it.
Oh,
We get one between us, but I looked online.
Okay.
You go to Toastmasters.org
Yeah.
and look at Toastmaster magazine.
I like reading the physical copy.
Yeah.
I do too.
I haven't gotten.
Are you getting it?
I do. I haven't gotten this month's yet, so I don't. Maybe the physical one comes out after the.
Is it December? Is it December?
Pretty sure. Seems like it would have come out right at the beginning of the month. I don't remember seeing the hard copy though, but I looked at it online. Is there anything else we need to discuss? All right, I'm going to say meeting is adjourned. See you all next week.